With the arrival of Andor Episode 6, The Eye, we are officially through the first half of this show. Well, Season 1 that is. This episode was certainly the payoff the last two were building towards. Like we mentioned last week, this series is split into distinct arcs, each being 3 episodes long. The Act 3 in this case really did deliver. Episode 6 had much higher stakes, especially in comparison to 4 and 5, which didn't even contain a single blaster shot. The prior 2 episodes really served to build characters and make us care more about what went down this week. This show really is a far cry from any Star Wars we've seen before. The one noticeable absence this week, however, was Cyril Karn. After being the main antagonist for the first 3 episodes, and now heading home as a failure who needs to call in a family favor, we know something has to be coming for the former Primo security officer. Almost the entire episode was of course focused on the action-packed heist that Cassian and the Aldhani crew undertook, which was insane. This definitely was the spy thriller we were promised. We do have plenty to talk about, so let's get going, Red Squadron. Spoilers are of course ahead for Andor episodes 1 through 6. We begin of course on Aldhani with Cassian under the alias of his father's name Clem. He's talking to Nemik, who says that he didn't get any sleep the night before and is worried he won't be at his best. Clem reassures him that the excitement will kick in. Nemik talks about his manifesto and how he's concluded that weapons are tools and those that use them are assets. The Empire has no moral boundaries, and they should take advantage every chance they can. Clem says he's half right, the Empire doesn't play by the rules, but they don't care enough to learn. Because they don't have to. Nemik asks Clem if he's hopeless, and if they should just sit there and be thankful. Clem responds by asking Nemik if he thinks he looks thankful. He tells Nemik he'll sleep when it's done. That line just hits different the second time around. We now head over to that very Imperial base they plan to infiltrate. We meet the Imperial Commandant in charge, J-Hold Behaz. He's there with his visiting Imperial engineer and our inside man, Lieutenant Gorn. Behaz is bragging about how easy it is to manipulate the Dani people, especially when he plans on expanding their base into their sacred valley. He even insinuates using them as slave labor, which we know the Empire does not stray away from. Terriman makes attempts to contact Vel while using the codename Echo 1, a nice little nod to the Empire Strikes Back.
Echo 3 to Echo 7. Hano, buddy, do you read me?
They get a hold of Vel and Cinta, who are hiding just beyond the base, waiting for their part in the heist. Both teams confirm they're in position. Clem mentions to Skeen about how good Terriman is at giving orders, when Skeen reveals that he actually used to be a stormtrooper. Apparently Cinta especially didn't like this at first. Her entire family was slaughtered by stormtroopers. Vel and Cinta get ready to move in with an underwater propeller as we see the first crystal meteor shoot across the sky, signaling the beginning of the celestial event known as the Eye of Aldhani. The Dani people arrive at the temple just outside of the Imperial base to observe. The Imperials mention there's only about 60 of them. Before their occupation, thousands would make this trip. Clem, Terriman, Skeen, and Nemik arrive in Imperial uniform and post up, now undercover. Vel and Cinta have a close call with an Imperial patrol stopping right outside of where they're hiding. As the Dani people proceed, Terriman leads the undercover squad as they fall in behind. Inside the base, Behaz prepares for the evening, struggling to put on a belt. We also meet his wife and son, who don't love living on this planet. The Dani arrive at the temple and are greeted by Gorn. We cut quickly to Vel and Cinta, who are wearing wetsuits and are about to move, as 2 more meteors shoot across the sky. As they wait in formation, Nemik mentions that Clem was right. Now he's not tired at all. Gorn instructs 3 squads to remain there for the night, telling them if they leave the Dani alone, they won't be bothered. The squad of rebels are instructed to follow Gorn, holding to escort the Commandant and his family back to the base. Vel and Cinta move in on the water. This visual really reminded me of Mon Cala in the Clone Wars. Gorn meets up with the Commandant. They have some sort of ceremonial goat skin to exchange with the Dani. Apparently, it stinks. Vel and Cinta have scaled up the side of the wall, ready to make their move. They set a jammer on the comms tower, as Nemik remarks that they're late. The Commandant arrives at the temple and wants to get things over with quickly. Vel hesitates to give Terriman the go, but ultimately does. There's no turning back now. The Commandant talks to the leader of the Dani, Gorn mistranslating what he says to be less offensive. Vel and Cinta rappel down the wall. Meanwhile, the squad falls in behind Terriman as they head towards the base. Here we go. As soon as the door closes, they make their move. They disarm the one guard, but one officer threatens to shoot Nemik if they don't let the boy go. Cinta jumps down a ladder and takes him out. The group force the Commandant to take them to the vault, while Vel and Cinta remain with the other hostages. Meanwhile, the jammer goes off, cutting off all Imperial transmissions, which one of the officers catch onto. Clem takes over the observation tower, and they move the remaining hostages there. They explain to the Commandant that he's coming with them to the vault, while his family remains there. If he doesn't cooperate, they all die. If he does, they all walk away. Vel and Cinta say goodbye. It's pretty clear there's more going on between these two. In the hangar where the vault and escape ship are located, the Imperials are all focused on playing cards, allowing the team to catch them off guard and unarmed. Terriman yells at them to form up for inspection before turning his blaster on them. They tell the men they'll load the ship as fast as possible or essentially be shot. They breach the vault and begin loading the Imperial payroll. The officer suspicious of the downed comms intercepts Cinta and Nemec talking. Outside, the Dani begin chanting and dancing. We know the eye will truly begin at any moment. The crew continues to load the payment onto the ship, but the airbase on the other side of the planet detects the breach and prepares to respond. Cinta disables the lights on the base, signaling Gorn. The suspicious officer scrambles a few soldiers, and they head to the vault to see what's going on. The heist crew continues to load the ship, having to rush a few slow Imperials. Outside, the Eye of Aldhani begins, giving us one of the most incredible visuals in all of Star Wars. There were so many beautiful shots in this sequence. Gorn arrives at the vault, face to face with his superior officer, who tells him he'll hang for this. He responds with, "After 7 years of serving you, I deserve worse than that." At the Alkenzi Air Command, pilots scramble to their TIE fighters to respond to the breached vault. It's so good to see TIE pilots once again, and the incredible visuals continue. The team continues to load the ship, dropping their first load, which they're forced to leave. Gorn tries to command him to leave and play it off as if it's an Imperial operation, but he and his men attack and a shootout erupts. Clem gets aboard the ship and powers it up, before one of the men sneak up and attempt to strangle him. Terriman tries to help a pinned down Vel, but gets shot. There's our first member of the crew down. Nemec manages to shoot Cassian's Strangler. We can also confirm that Vel's AK-47 looking weapon is in fact a blaster and not a slug thrower, like we speculated 2 weeks ago. The remaining crew get aboard and the ship prepares to take off, just as TIE fighters launch across the planet. During the takeoff, a crate of the gold slides and crushes Nemec against another, critically injuring him. They fly out of the tunnel and into the eye. Skeen and Vel manage to free Nemec, but he's in a bad way, which is not good considering he's their navigator. Without his flight path, Clem doesn't know where to go. Vel gives him some sort of an injection, and he starts to regain some composure. The TIE fighters pull up and begin to pursue. Nemec tells Clem to climb, which he finds hard to believe given exactly what he sees out the window. After Nemec assures him once again, he does, and it barely works. The TIE pilots are absolutely baffled, but decide to follow. Nemec instructs him to then dive and give boosters full power. They manage to just make it through an opening. The TIE fighters are much less lucky, however. We get one final shot of the eye, as Dani and Imperials alike observe. Now in space, Clem, Vel, and Skeen have two options. They can deliver the payment immediately, or divert to get Nemec to a doctor. After some convincing from Skeen and Clem, Vel agrees to get him treated. Nemec is taken care of by a 4-armed creature. Meanwhile outside, Skeen offers Clem an alternative option. The two take off and split the 80 million credits 50-50. Skeen can't fly it, but he has a place where they can hold up. Clem asks about how he thought he was a rebel. Skeen says it's much more about him versus everyone else. He even reveals that the story he told Clem last week about the Empire essentially killing his brother was completely made up. This obviously won't sit well with a Cassian Andor, who's actually looking for his lost sister at the beginning of this series. Without any further hesitation, Cassian shoots him dead. He heads into the tent, where we learn that Nemec has died. Cassian tells Vel what happened, but she doesn't really believe him. He says he's taking his cut of the 30,000 credits, buying a ship and leaving. Vel can keep the rest and the freighter. He even returns Luthen's Kyber crystal. Vel gives him one last thing, Nemec's manifesto, saying he insisted Cassian have it. God, I'm gonna miss Nemec. Cassian then departs. Over at the ISB, they've definitely taken notice of what's happened. They're going into high alert. We then head to an old prequel-era location, the Senate building on Coruscant. Mon Mothma is delivering a speech, but no one seems to be listening. She's talking about how the Empire conquering the species known as Gorman. She then picks up her datapad, presumably learning about the rebels' success on Aldhani. Similarly, Luthen is busy at work when a customer asks if he has anything from Aldhani. Luthen looks worried for a second before the officer mentions there was just a big rebel attack there. Luthen says he'll take a look in the back. Once he's back there, he cackles a very satisfied laugh and breathes a sigh of relief. That's the episode. Roll credits. Now that definitely was the payoff we were waiting for. As I said, the stakes were much higher, and it felt like the spy thriller we were promised. The action was incredible, and the tension was even better. It's hard to say where Cassian is headed next. He could return to his homeworld of Ferrix, only to see the Empire there, maybe start looking for his sister again. Perhaps Luthen will seek him out for another job. We ultimately know he has a lot of work to do in order to become the team player and experienced rebel captain in Rogue One. We know there's still plenty of things to come, from the Phase 2 clones to Saw Gerrera. I can't wait to find out where the next 3 episodes will take Cassian. But where do you think the story is headed next for Andor in the second half of this season? Let us know in the comments below. Also, be sure to subscribe to catch our breakdown of Episode 7 next week, and maybe drop a like on this video while you're at it. It helps our very young channel a great deal. Until next time, Red 5 standing by.